So, today's session is really to help you understand the importance of referencing and how to ensure you don't make silly mistakes when you're writing up any of your academic work, but in particular in relation to your proposal and dissertation. So, I thought it would be useful to bring you through what I perceive to be the top 5 mistakes that students consistently make in their work. Before we begin though, it's probably useful to talk you through the terminology that's involved. So, when I speak about in-text referencing, what I'm referring to there is the referencing that you use in the body of the work, i.e. within the actual dissertation itself. The reference list then refers to the list of references cited in the actual work. Often students get confused between the difference between a reference list and a bibliography. The reference list, as I said, simply makes use of a list of sources of material that you have used to cite in your actual work, while the bibliography simply contains a list of sources that you have consulted but not necessarily that you have cited directly in the body of your work. So they may have informed your opinion, but you haven't directly cited them. So as not to overcomplicate things, the emphasis here really should be on the reference list, and you should always include a reference list as part of your assignment. It is sufficient in this instance, and in terms of your actual dissertation, to only have a reference list, but it is important that you understand the difference between the two. And finally, just to make you aware of the referencing system that is policy here within the college. We use the Harvard referencing system. And again, for those of you who haven't been down to the library or are unaware of it, our library staff have produced a free little guide or handbook which you can get in the library, First Sight at NCI, and it outlines how to reference correctly using the Harvard referencing style, but it also helps you overcome some difficult references that you might have. For example, how to correctly reference websites or podcasts or newspapers or any non-standard academic material. Okay, let's get started then. So the mistake that I see most commonly in students' work is the idea that students will include the first name of the author in their in-text referencing. So here the example is the main cause of stress amongst women can be attributed to men. And this person has put open bracket Colette Darcy, comma 2011. Or sometimes what I see is they have open bracket C. Darcy 2011. So they use the first name initial or the first name itself. This is incorrect. You should never include the first name or initial of the person you are referencing in the main body of your work. If you do nothing else and you eliminate that from your piece of work, you'll have made progress. It's amazing how many students persist in doing it. Top mistake to avoid. Mistake number 2 is the positioning of the full stop. The full stop comes after the bracket, not before, and there are not 2 of them. So again, the example that I have given you is the main cause of stress amongst women can be attributed to men, full stop, open bracket, Darcy, comma 2011, full stop. This is incorrect. Equally, it would be incorrect if we had the main cause of stress amongst women can be attributed to men, full stop, open bracket, Darcy, comma 2012, close bracket, no full stop. It would still be wrong. The correct way to do it is to ensure that the full stop comes after the bracket, at the end of the sentence. So again, looking at the last bullet point on this slide, you can see it says the main cause of stress amongst women can be attributed to men, open bracket Darcy, comma 2012, close bracket, dot. Mistake number 3 that we tend to see quite a lot of is the idea when students are citing a number of authors in one go. And again, here we might have 3, 4 authors that we are making reference to. Where this occurs, they should really appear in chronological order, i.e. date order, with the newest coming first. It's a small thing, and we're moving into really technical detail here, but again, when you're starting to write your proposal or your dissertation, it makes sense to try and get these conventions correct from the outset. So again, looking at the examples we can see here below, I won't read them out, you can see them yourselves, where we have authors who are 2008, 2010, and 2007, we really want to reorder those so the most recent one appears first. Mistake number 4 that I tend to see quite a lot of is where there are more than 2 authors in your citation, i.e. the article is written by more than 2 authors. Then you cite all the authors the first time you mention them, and thereafter the first author followed by et al, comma, and the year. Students tend to get confused about this term et al. It literally means and others. So the first time we make reference to a piece of work that has more than 2 authors, we cite all the authors. So if there's 5 of them, we put down all 5 surnames followed by the year. Thereafter, if we're making reference to the same piece of work, we tend to use the first surname only and et al. So the first name and others have written this. It's a shorthand, but remember, the first time you cite that piece of work, you must use all the author's surnames. Again, there's an example provided for you here, but it's important that you pay attention to this kind of referencing convention. Finally, and it tends to be, again, a very common mistake that students make, is in relation to the reference list itself. When I look at a reference list, as all examiners do, it gives you a very good sense of whether or not the student knows what they're about, and also gives you an insight in terms of the standard of work that you can expect to see. Because by quickly looking at somebody's reference list, I can see, for example, what material you have consulted, how up to date it is, whether or not you have covered off the key readings in relation to a particular topic, etc. So the reference list tends to be the first place that most examiners go to get a sense of how well you have completed the task that you have been given. However, when you set out your reference list, it should always appear in alphabetical order. There is no need to separate out journals, books, and other texts in your reference list. Students do this, and I can understand why, but it's not the Harvarding system and it's not the convention. So again, when you're listing out all of your references, they appear in alphabetical order by surname. Again, in your reference list, it's sufficient to give the author's first name initial. It doesn't have to be their full name. And again, that's in line with the Harvard referencing system. Referencing can be a pain. It can be time consuming, as I say, if you don't get it right from the start. It can drive you batty at the end of your dissertation, but you should